laying foundations for full consciousness and familiarizing with a beautiful path of Tao Te Ching. We will overview how we lay foundations to full consciousness, at which stage the most important preparations are made, and what are the 3 keywords to embrace on this higher path to full consciousness. So, Tao Te Ching is one of the 73 paths of ParBrahmanda. It is one of the higher spiritual paths. Also, it makes references to the higher regions of the divine above, but in its own unique way of the Tao Te Ching. This path originated quite a while ago, over 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. It's quite an old path by a mysterious sage called Lao Tzu. And actually, it is known that Lao Tzu was one of the Indian rishis, one of the Indian revered yogis who has traveled from India towards China. And he adapted the teaching to the local culture in a very beautiful way, in a very deep way. So Tao Te Ching actually is a very small book of about 80 verses, and each one of them is like a spiritual gem. And when you read them, you can really get a sense of the non-dual way, the way of the Tao, that points to the deeper way of harmony. So I would like to read some of the passages, some of the verses, and to explain you a little bit more of the meaning. So the first verse says that the Tao that can be told, it's not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. So here it says that the Tao is actually nameless. And we know that in the divine, there is a region which is called the Anami Lock. The Anami Lock is the 5th divine region. Anami means nameless region. So there is a beautiful correspondence to the very opening lines of Tao Te Ching. It further goes, the unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. So Tao Te Ching is one of the mystical paths, one of the beautiful paths, and the Eastern or the mainly China region way of non-duality. Like in India, we have Advaita Vedanta, and in China, we have the Taoist teachings. Another verse, we join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. So here it says that in the middle of the wheel, there is a hole. And that hole is what makes the wagon move. It is the emptiness that has value. It further continues, we shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for the house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. Yes, again, pointing to the inner space, to the value of emptiness. And here it goes in a more non-dual way. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. So for those familiar with Advaita Vedanta, this is a spiritual gem. In a very day-to-day language, we say day-to-day wisdom. It has no complications of yogic lineages. It is the day-to-day wisdom that is brought here. In a similar way that Sant Kabir Das was also speaking and teaching in a day-to-day living, in a practical manner. So we find that Lao Tzu also adapted the language in a day-to-day life. In a similar manner, Jesus also has spoken in parables, which we may call as a mystical teaching. And to understand these parables and the meaning behind them, you have to sit down and contemplate or feel into them. The other verse says, the Tao is infinite and eternal. Why is it eternal? Because it was never born. Thus it can never die. So here it is a reference to the divine region, we may say, because in the divine region there is no birth, there is no death, there is no creation. Nothing was created and therefore cannot be destroyed. The birth and death begins with ParBrahmanda. And then it goes all the way down into the physicality. Why is it infinite? It has no desires for itself, thus it is present for all beings. So it is present for all beings, or it is everywhere. The same way Sadpurush is everywhere and supports everything and powers all the universes. All the gods and goddesses receive power from Sadpurush. The verse further continues, the master stays behind. Here it beautifully, the language, this is a particular translation by Stephen Mitchell, which I find one of the best ones to be. And here he uses the word the master, and he beautifully refers to as she. Because commonly, everywhere the male aspect is emphasized. And here he beautifully changes this notion that the being who incorporates the Tao is a master and has the feminine quality, it's she. So we may see this beautiful pointing that to truly comprehend Tao, we need to overcome the male aspects and to find the balance in the female aspect. And this is where the male and the female transcends into non-duality. The yin and yang are together as one whole, and beyond that is non-duality. So in this translation, it says that the master stays behind. That is why she is ahead. By staying behind, the master is ahead. So she is detached from all things. That is why she is one with them. Because she has let go of herself, she is perfectly fulfilled. What a beautiful way to explain about detachment and yet being one with all and letting go of oneself and thus becoming perfectly fulfilled. We would find the same elaborations in Advaita Vedanta, in the non-dual teachings. And the last verse that I have chosen is being and non-being create each other. Difficult and easy support each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. Before and after follow each other. Therefore, the master acts without doing and teaches without saying. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. She has but doesn't possess. Acts but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever. This is a non-dual gem. It speaks of the opposites and the transcendent meaning of those opposites. And it speaks the way of the master, the way that advanced being or yogi or master who is truly one with the Tao, how he or she lives or acts. So this is a very beautiful little book called Tao Te Ching. And one of the best translations is by Stephen Mitchell. You can even read it online for free. It's all available. And it is a spiritual gem of non-duality, of this great way. Therefore, the very perfect time for this book is when you reach the level of consciousness of presence, because this is where you begin to truly implement this wisdom. Of course, you may read this book a lot earlier and just admire it, but you will truly be able to start implementing it and practicing it when you open up to presence. So presence level of consciousness is where we lay the foundations for full consciousness. I give the analogy usually that if you want to build a skyscraper, you have to dig very deep foundations that are earthquake proof. So the foundations need to be very deep, they need to be earthquake proof and very wide. And then you can build the skyscraper. Therefore, in the presence consciousness, we dedicate time for transmissions, beingness, and learning how to be with dualities. How to be with dualities. I call it usually the spiritual weather. The dualities are like spiritual weather, and you are like an ancient tree, the tree of presence, the tree of life. That is another connection with the mystical Christian teachings and Kabbalah, the tree of life. So in presence, you mature to become the stillness, the peace. Now, some of the key words that are applicable and that continue all the way to full consciousness are peace, patience, stillness, emptiness, harmony, and balance, transcendence. So whenever we meet any disturbances, any disturbing energies, emotions, thoughts, we step into this larger space of presence and we become present with that which is within, but knowing that you are the space for it. You're the space for that. And some of you are already at this level of consciousness or above, and it is so beautiful to return to the foundations because you realize that even when you're in full consciousness, that you come back and you automatically remember to be present with any new arising energy, feeling, sensation. Life always gives some new circumstances, new people to push your buttons, new challenges to test you deeper. And you remember this way of being, way of meeting those challenges of the day, to stay deeper. And in presence, your tree of presence is pretty young, pretty small. It is supported by a stick. You know, when you grow a tree from the seed, it rises through the soil, and then you put a stick next to it so that it is supported, that it doesn't break from the wind. But as the tree grows bigger and bigger, it doesn't need the extra stick anymore. Now it's stronger than the wind. So in presence, you're supported with a stick. And when you rise to non-duality level of consciousness, we can then remove the stick. And when you grow to full consciousness and settle more into it, then you become like a mighty oak tree, like a mighty tree that can now withstand the winds, meet all the challenges, whether these are windy days, rainy days, or sunny days. So this continues to deepen, deepen and deepen. And some of the non-dual teachers of today, especially from Ramana lineage, they continue teaching in the same way about the self, about the non-duality, and they keep deepening and meeting every moment as it comes, meeting in truth every moment as it comes. And what is the difference, you may ask, between somebody who learns to be in this way in presence versus somebody who is in full consciousness? The difference is that in full consciousness, the gaps and the distances close. So you become not only one with what arises, but you also become what arises. You are completely as what arises. Not one with what arises, but one as what arises. So all these subtle resistances have opportunity to unwind. I will repeat. Subtle resistances have opportunity to unwind. Now, this is deeper that you may assume. You say, oh, okay, this sounds simple, but try to put it into practice. And you will notice day to day that something arises and it bothers you. Something arises and it triggers you. Something arises and you say, oh, it shouldn't be this way. Or something arises and, oh, why is it so? Or why is it not the other way? And all these things that arise in one way or another, they move you. They trigger you, or you'll have difficulty letting it go, or you're attaching to something, holding on to something. So all of these things, we may say, are certain resistances, whether holding or not wanting to let go. It's a resistance either one way of holding or having difficulty in letting it go, or wanting to hold it. So in whichever way it goes, there is a certain resistance to what arises as a inner phenomena. So the inner thing wants to move through, but if you say like, oh, I don't like this emotion or this bad vibration, but because you don't like it, you resist it, and therefore it is struggling to flow through you and to move on. So therefore, when you are, now this is where again the Buddha teaching come in of emptiness. Because if you're truly empty, then whatever comes is fine, whatever goes is fine. And this is what the Tao Te Ching also says. So in the emptiness, things come, things go without resistance. Being completely empty and yet fulfilled. Whatever comes, you're absolutely one with all of it. Even if a bad vibration comes, you don't resist it because it's bad. If it comes, it comes. And if you are in the right way, then you process it real time. If you don't process it real time, it means it got stuck somewhere within you. There is a resistance. So something comes that you don't like, and now it's stuck within you and it's polishing through the resistance. But if something comes that you don't like, it can just flow through if you have no resistance. And then it flows through and it's not a problem. You are one with it. So this is the mystery of how the master works or lives or acts. This is also called being spontaneous. In other words, you can't really anticipate much how the master will react because it's not pre-programmed. It's not the usual way. Sometimes it is because simply it doesn't mean anything much to behave in a usual way. But when something is unusual, a certain thing arises, and then the master is so much deeper in this emptiness or openness. We also call it the boundless openness of full consciousness. And from that place, it is difficult to say what's going to happen, how the master will react, or what outcome will come out of it. And of course, people are short-sighted. Everybody says, well, I put some effort and this is what I expect. This is basically a linear way of living. I put effort into A and now I expect B. But the transcendent being has a bigger view. The transcendent being can see that A plus B doesn't lead to C, or it may lead to F or Z, or even back somewhere else. So therefore, logic, you have to throw away. You only use it when you need it. The transcendent way can see beyond dualities. The transcendent way doesn't act on the usual natural cycles. Therefore, the true natural way or the natural self is beyond the cycles, beyond the normal cycles. This is why many times over in our life, in my life as this being, and in our life with Leon, and in community and all of it, we can make changes which are unexpected. Something goes in a linear manner and then suddenly something changes. Something is from above. There is a normal cycle, we may say, but the transcendent way is that through making certain changes, we can align with the higher way. I remember an instance when we had a retreat in Rishikesh, and this was one probably in 2018 or 19. We went to a Samadhi ashram of Anandamayi Ma, and as I sat down to meditate, to connect with her Samadhi presence in her ashram in Haridwar, I started to connect with Anandamayi Ma, and we went up, and I could see at the very highest place that she is like a light of singularity that is piercing through our universe. So she's transcendent. of our universe and all the cycles, all the yugas, all the ages. And I could see that she is the light, we may say, of singularity that pierces through the whole universe. She is above our universe. I already met her before, but this was in her samadhi. And well, wow, this is beautiful. And I could see her light piercing through the whole universe. She's not subject to the laws of this universe, to the cycles of this universe, to reincarnation of this universe. So this is the real non-duality. This is the real transcendence. And the master, the guru who is transcendent, may act in mysterious ways, illogical ways, unusual ways. But usually, after a while, this mystery can be revealed, and then, oh wow, I didn't expect that, didn't anticipate that. So we can find the simplicity in the Tao Te Ching. And we can see the beautiful parallels of the Indian Advaita Vedanta. We can see a beautiful correlations in Buddhism, in Buddha's teachings. We can see some correlations with the divine way. It points to the nameless, Ananilog. Although the Tao Te Ching is more anchored in the ParBrahmanda, it's one of the 73 paths of ParBrahmanda. So it is more settled in that region as the way, as the lineage. The lineage itself of Taoism, there are some masters in Asia. They're not very well known, generally in the West. So it is very hard to follow this lineage as such, especially for the Westerners. But in the Eastern Asia, in China and other regions, it has branched out very widely. It branched out into many energetic modalities, for example, Qigong, and many, many other things that are incorporated in the Eastern Asian ways of healing. Of course, there are many gifts that arose through this lineage. For example, the Chinese knowledge of the meridians and the acupuncture. So some of the Taoist masters have looked much deeper into the human body, into its composition, and developed these branches to a very beautiful, supportive way of healing. So we have this view of the Taoism and paralleling to the presence and non-duality and towards full consciousness. And full consciousness, of course, is to be lived. It's not something that opens up and suddenly you are completely rewired from your previous habits. Of course, these rare instances of big transformations happen, but most commonly on the way to full consciousness, you already learn this way of being, the non-dual way of being. And by the time you reach the full consciousness, you can already meet everything within you in this way, and you keep practicing it. And as you keep practicing it, it becomes more familiar, more accustomed, and even it becomes, we may say, somewhat automated, non-dual way of being. Of course, it is not unconscious automation. It is a healthy automation of the right way of meeting everything. And as soon as something challenging arises, you instantly become more present, you go deeper, and you meet it in the right way. So your system already knows what to do right away. So therefore, the effortless way comes from the effort of realigning in this higher natural way. And when you make the effort to let go of that which is unnatural, the effortless way becomes natural. So the effort is needed to undo the unnatural, but the actual natural is effortless. In some of the verses of the Tao Te Ching, it refers to the source as emptiness or darkness from which everything springs. So Lao Tzu had a beautiful realization of the great void beyond even the non-dual ParBrahmanda. Lao Tzu was a greatly embodied master, guru of a practical integration of non-duality. However, as we know that the great void is beyond the vast creation of countless universes in ParBrahmanda. So it is true that creation springs from the great void. However, beyond that is where the divine regions begin. The true supreme light, which manifested the great void, which is the source and the powerhouse for all the countless universes. And it goes ever deeper and deeper into brighter bliss, more intense light, infinitely deeper and higher up. So now and then we will overview some of the largest key spiritual paths, just like we did today with the Tao, the way of the Tao. In other meetings, we will overview other major paths as time goes by to become familiar with these beautiful ways. And we may see that the teachings of Tao are very relevant to presence, to non-duality, to the mysticism of the void, very relevant to the Buddhist teachings. And we need to learn to incorporate it as we grow and open towards the full consciousness. This is how we make space for your true natural self. This is how we undo that which is unnatural. And we become effortless, more spontaneous, and aligned with the great way.